As you enter into the webinar, please do take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat function of the webinar tool, where you're from, what's your role, what maybe even what you're looking forward to today. Given it is a webinar and we have a panel of outstanding students to provide their perspective on their experience, please do feel free to use the question and answer function. So if you have questions, please pose those there and we will add those to our focus questions that we're providing for today's discussion. So thank you for joining us. My name is Colin Rittmaster. I'm the Associate Executive Director from MASSP. With me today is a distinguished panel of students who will introduce themselves in a moment. But before then, I want to thank Matt Alley, our Director of Student Activities and leader of the Michigan Association of Student Councils and Michigan Association of Honor Societies that helped to recruit and assemble this distinguished panel of students. So thank you, Matt, for joining us, as well as with us also is our resident lobbyist advocate, Bob Kefjan, who is looking forward to hearing what our students had to say as he helps to inform policymakers around their student experiences. And then, of course, Ryan Casey, our music man, and all things technical to make sure that everything runs in time. So thank you for joining us today. We're looking forward to hearing from the student voices. As we engage today, please do remain muted using the question and answer system to pose questions for the students. If you have comments or ideas that you think should be considered, feel free to add those to the chat as well, but we'll be using the question and answer feature for the interaction with our students today. Please do know that we are recording this and we will post it through our COVID Daily tomorrow, or actually I think it's going out today this time, given the holiday weekend. And from there then it'll also be available on our website. So once again, this is a panel discussion where the students are going to introduce themselves, including their name, the school they're in, the grade level that they're currently in. So after we get through those pieces, I'll have a few closing thoughts for you to reflect on and connect with as you're going there. As we do listen to the students and pose questions with them, I want the educators on the forum to really think about in what ways might these students' perspectives either mirror or conflict with the students within your district. How is their experience similar or different from yours? So without further ado, please join me in welcoming our trusted voices, the people who are doing the work as learners in the classroom of their homes. So with that, please unmute yourself one by one as you introduce going down this list.
Alrighty, thank you. Hello, my name is Anna Gill, and I am currently a junior attending Canton High School in the Plymouth-Canton Community School District.
Hi, my name is Ethan, and I am a junior at Chesaning High School in the Chesaning Union Schools District.
Hi, I'm Isabella. I'm also a junior, and I go to Churchill High School in Livonia Public Schools District.
Hi, I'm Mackenzie Alexander. I go to Millington High School, and I'm a sophomore.
Hi, my name is Michelle Charles. I'm a junior at Dow High School in the Midland Public Schools District.
Hi, my name is Neil Monroe. I'm a junior at Mona Shores High School, and I'm in the Mona Shores Public School District.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, my video was not working. I am Chase Kelly. I'm from Matawan High School. I'm a current junior, and I'm in the Matawan Consolidated School District.
Thank you for joining us again, and thank you for being a part of this discussion. To get us started, we're going to have Anna get us started again with this question, but feel free as others that will just go in any order as you feel, just unmuting yourself to prompt us to know that you're next in line to speak. So Anna, what are some things you've appreciated regarding your school's approach to remote learning?
Okay, now one thing that I appreciated about my school's approach would be the fact that our teachers were instructed to post in 2-week modules. So this was useful for a number of reasons. First off, there are no set daily deadlines. So in case my Wi-Fi was down one day, I don't have to stress about that. And also, it allows me to work on my own schedule. So I prefer to wake up early in the morning and finish all my work while my siblings are asleep. Same thing with quizzes. I can do that without having distractions.
I'd say for my school, the amount of compassion and flexibility that my teachers were showing like us really made the whole situation more comfortable. They were being very flexible with their office hours, their due dates, and the amount of work they were putting out at a time.
Yeah, I would agree with that. For my school, I would say that our strongest point was the flexibility. Our schoolwork, similar to Anna's, is assigned weekly, so that way we have a whole week to get our assignments done and sort of figure it out if we're really busy one day, or if we're working, rather than having the assignment given that day and then having to finish it. I would find that a lot more stressful. Also, my school has office hours, so that way if we do have a problem, we can still contact our teachers face to face and try to learn through our work throughout the week, rather than being really confused over an assignment and only having a day to complete it.
I think the biggest thing I've appreciated is that teachers have really just shown that they care by keeping their email inboxes open, holding Zooms, holding different forms of conferencing just for students to ask questions, because a lot of this learning is difficult to do by yourself on a computer. So I think the flexibility and openness to questions of teachers has really been helpful.
I would like to add with some of the things that they're saying and echoing. I think communication, not just from my standpoint as a high schooler, but from I have two younger siblings, and getting them to do their work can be a little difficult sometimes. But I think our superintendent and our principals do a tremendous job, as well as our teachers, just kind of putting out there what we need to have done and just saying, this is the time you have, and whatever, if you need anything, we're here. We can adapt to whatever your needs are, because the main priority is just us students.
As you think about your school's approach, and obviously it seems like the flexibility has been something that you've appreciated. What challenges have come when it came to that flexibility, and or what are some challenges that may have been brought on by just your family structure, accessibility, those other types of things?
I'll start. So my school is unlike Anna and Chase's, where they have like a schedule that they give you for the week. Mine is more of a rigid schedule that we have to follow, where on Mondays and Wednesdays we have our classes 1, 3, and 5, Zoom calls or Google Meets. And then Tuesdays and Thursdays we have 2, 4, and 6. And there are specific times for those. And not all teachers, I feel like, have been on the same page, because some people are doing, my French teacher is doing something weekly, while other teachers are saying, you have to get on these calls, they're mandatory, while some are not going and following their schedule. So I feel like probably the most challenging obstacle is like conflicting teacher viewpoints, if that makes sense, because they're not necessarily following what the district sent out as the plan.
Some of the problems that I personally had is my family shares like one laptop, and so I have some teachers that are like assigning assignments every single day, and then I get kind of falling behind because I can't get on the laptop every day. And some teachers are doing this, but the ones that are, they're being understanding about the deadlines, but there's also still like piling us up with work, so it gets to be a lot towards the end of the week when I don't have time to get on every single day.
I think the biggest struggle has been, I've noticed that like specifically like band classes and art classes don't have the same structure and same curriculum as like Common Core classes. So it's been difficult for those teachers to put stuff out. Like having a sibling that had an art class, she was getting things day by day instead of weekly, like all the other classes were doing it. And she was just getting like weird assignments. And for band, our band director's been messing around with a whole bunch of stuff trying to figure out what works. So I think the margin of error for the arts classes is a lot bigger because they don't have the same structure that the other classes do.
Just following up with what Ethan said, I think that a difficulty that myself and my peers have had is organizing all of our assigned work because, for example, my AP Econ teacher assigns work on about 4 different platforms. So it becomes a little bit difficult to manage where we should be doing our assignments. And my econ teacher is different from my math teacher. He uses 2 or 3 different platforms in the span of 1 week, right? So it sometimes gets to be a little bit difficult when teachers are trying a bunch of different applications, and it kind of becomes difficult to figure out, okay, I have this due today and this due tomorrow. Oh, but I still have to submit something on this application.
Yeah, I think for me as well, I would say a main challenge is with AP testing. I think the lack of rigor, like leading up to those weeks, definitely, I don't want to say impacted my score, but I think it would have been really beneficial to have a little more work involving those classes. And also, I would have preferred a little more organization when it comes to classes, because my gov class, when we went into like quarantine, since it was an all senior class, it just ended. And I wasn't really aware what was happening. So I was quite confused at where were my assignments for this class. And my teacher did make it a point, like he did email us, but it was just confusing on why did that class end and not others. So I think after, like, I am an organized student, so I did like figure everything out, but I would just say purely like looking through all my emails, and like, you just have to be really diligent. And I think that's a struggle for a lot of people who may have Wi-Fi struggles or not an technology device to constantly be checking their email.
I'd say for me, the biggest struggle I faced was my shift in the mindset from receiving a letter grades as feedback rather than a complete or incomplete. That kind of really like messed up how I was doing the work, and how before all of this, I was putting 100% effort to receive 100% like back as like an A, B, or C or whatever, rather than getting, oh, you did the work, here's the credit you're getting for it, it's complete, that's it, without getting any sort of feedback back, whether it was accurate or not.
So one of the things that multiple students referenced is this idea of asynchronous, where you're able to access learning at any time, at any pace, and progress in that based on teachers' posting of assignment versus having to get on at the same time. Versus the synchronous, where you're having to be on at the same time. And it sounds like the synchronous learning opportunities tend to be a little more challenging. I heard Mackenzie saying just even from an accessibility point of view, as well as this idea of a fixed schedule that may or may not fit for your family. So when you think about some of the asynchronous learning opportunities you have had, what are the learning experiences you valued the most or felt like were most beneficial to you as a learner? So that we can take from that, maybe these are some suggestions of what teachers might provide or structure for the students.
I think that it's very dependent on the class. My English class, for example, I think asymmetrical like learning from that point of view is very good because we have multiple students giving their perspective on the book that we're reading, or we have people that are presenting, and there's a need for there to be a classroom kind of environment where it's important to have multiple people there, as opposed to like math or something where it's just the teacher talking. So it doesn't really feel as if there's a need for everyone to be there in that exact moment in time, where that could be something just recorded and then posted on Google Classroom for people to look at a later date. So I think it's very dependent on the class, in my opinion.
I think that in particular, math classes, as far as like working independently without your teacher, have gone very well, because this year I'm taking pre-calculus and I plan to take AP calculus next year. So I need to learn the material. And when our teacher gives us assignments on something like Delta Math, where it's a structured website that if you get a question wrong, you don't move on, you have to continue answering more questions until you get it right. It's stuff like that is helpful because I feel like I'm really learning and I can do it on my time. It doesn't have to be scheduled within a class or anything. So that stuff like that has been really helpful.
One thing I would like to add is I think even if teachers are going to do live review sessions or live lectures, I think it's important that teachers record and post those lessons for people who cannot tune in live. I think that's something that's been a little bit difficult for my school because I have 2 AP classes that are live every Wednesday at the same time, but they don't record their lectures. So it's one or the other every time, and that becomes a little bit difficult to manage.
Yeah, my school sort of is contradicting that because none of our classes have a set day and time that we all meet. It's more of they have office hours, and if you want to join and you have a question, you can join. I think those are really strong just because if you are confused, you can join, but they also record all of their lessons. So like my math teacher records all of her lessons and sends them out on Google Classroom. So we can look at them whenever we want. And then if we have a question on the lesson, we can join her office hours. So I think that's been really strong just because it's so flexible, but you also have the opportunity to fix any challenges that you're having in the learning process.
I think something that's been super helpful is my chemistry teacher. He does 2 Zooms like a week. He does on Mondays and Wednesdays at 2 different times. And pretty much kids can go and join and ask any questions. But he does it at 2 different times. He does one in the morning and the one at the night, so kids can do it on their own time, and they don't have to wake up at a certain time. It's something that I really appreciate that he's doing because that's a class that a lot of kids end up having questions on.
So it sounds like this idea of having flexibility, whether it's asynchronous where you're looking at a recording or accessing some type of resource like Ethan mentioned from that end with Delta Math, to having flexible time slots. So if you have multiple times during a day or multiple times during the week to access the same instruction is a very beneficial piece. Going to that piece around feedback that Ethan kind of says the math curriculum and the tool they're using actually gives him instant feedback on whether or not he's on the learning path or not. What's been your experience with receiving feedback from teachers to know whether or not you're learning what you were expected to learn? Because I think, Anna, you even mentioned earlier, like you did things but you weren't necessarily sure. Michelle, you brought up this idea of completion versus a grade and that type of thing. So what type of feedback are you getting that's been helpful? Or how has the lack of feedback impacted your learning?
See, for me personally, it has kind of like hindered the effort that I'm putting towards the work I'm doing. Before, like I said earlier, before all of this, I was putting 100% effort into my schoolwork all the time to receive that feedback. During this time, I haven't been able to like build up that mindset like I had before because I know I'm not getting the feedback that I would be getting if we weren't in this situation. And so like it really messed with not only like my mentality towards my schoolwork, but the effort I was putting towards my schoolwork.
For me, I think, unfortunately, a lot of my classes have been lacking in feedback, which is understandable because, it's a lot to be giving all this feedback and emailing online. But it is difficult because take my chemistry class, for example. He posts 2 lectures, and then we take a quiz online. He scores that quiz, and then we move on to the next unit. So it's a little bit difficult, especially because I'm taking AP chemistry next year, to sort of ensure that I am learning stuff that will be continuous, not just I'm learning it now for a grade and then moving on, but rather it's something that I can build on.
I think for me at my school, my math and English department have been really good because we had SAT timed writings to prepare for our AP exam, and we turned those in to turn it in. And my teacher sent very thorough feedback within like 2 days. And I know she had hundreds of essays to grade. So I think that within itself is a daunting task for her. So I think that has been very strong just because she's so attentive. And my math teacher, one day I got a question wrong on my test, and she emailed me like, oh, here's the lesson for this if you want to review. That way, like for the future what this curriculum looks like. But I think for other classes, like my history assignment, like I submitted a 4-page document and my teacher just put like, good job at the bottom, which I guess it is good feedback, but I mean, it's not as thorough and in-depth as school, because I'm sure if I was in school, it wouldn't just be like, oh, good job, here's your paper back. But also I think feedback is definitely pivotal, just so that I'm not just sending in my work and then just never seeing the work sort of pay off.
I think one thing on feedback that I've really appreciated is going back to my pre-calculus class. My teacher has been extremely thorough, and if you turn anything in that she knows isn't up to your standards, like isn't up to what the best you can do, she sends it right back to you with an email explaining what you need to do to get credit for it. And I really appreciate that, because like this is a weird time and students are by no means perfect. So like holding them to be accountable like that, I think is really important, and it's helped me learn what I know that I'm going to need to know for future classes.
I felt like mine was kind of more like Michelle's, where it's made me focus more on just completing the assignment than necessarily taking all of my time to get it right. My math teacher, for example, I feel like our feedback is more left up to the students to be determined enough to ask what they did wrong or what they can improve on. I turn in assignments and I would just get it back and get a completion score. I wouldn't get a great job like Chase. I would get a grade on an assignment or something, but there would be like, even if I wrote an essay, there was no comment on what I could improve or what I did good on. So it's really been lacking. And it's been left up to me to email my teachers saying, hey, why did I get points off on this? What could I do to improve? But unlike Michelle's, the way that my district is setting it up is we can either take a card marking grade as an A or whatever letter grade we get, or we can take an S. So it's like an option for us to have the people that really are trying to give 100% of their effort get an A and take the A, or the people that are just focusing on completion can take the S, which is something that I like personally for my school district. So, yes.
Taking that a step further, I think most of your districts, other than that, are doing more of a credit, no credit, or pass, incomplete type of thing, and having opportunities to redo. And I think a lot of that has to do with thinking of it from an equity, so that people aren't disadvantaged because of accessibility and or support that a student might need. So just taking grading and credit as one example, what are some things you think, if you were principal for the day, if you were the staff for the day, and you could kind of rethink this grading and credit and feedback type of thing, and you were to set some expectations around that for teachers, what might you suggest those expectations be when it comes to grading, feedback, and credit?
I think for me, my little brother had a rougher first semester than second. So, and he's a freshman, so his second semester GPA would have very much been boosted. So I think Corona has definitely been rough. But I think for my school, especially, all of my classes, you have to complete every single assignment to even get a pass, which I think I would be a little more flexible on, just because one, the accessibility act point, but also I had say I had a 97% going into Corona, and then I forget to turn in one assignment and then don't pass my class. I just don't see how that sort of represents what my work in the class should be represented by a grade. So I would say grading would be unfair, just because some people do not have the resources as others, but also I would be a little more lenient, just because I cannot imagine failing a class just because I forgot to turn in one assignment.
So our school we got very lucky with this, because we set our schedule in trimesters. So that very last day before we had to leave for 3 weeks was the last day we were taking exams, and the second trimester was ending. So when we got off, we were in the third trimester. So everyone had completely new classes. And I like what Isabella mentioned earlier, where people have the option to take the letter grade, because if I could take the letter grade right now, I definitely would. But then people that maybe have accessibility issues and don't think that they can get on every day and turn the assignments in every day can take a pass-fail grade if they wanted to do that. I think that offering that option to students is a big deal because a lot of them want the letter grade.
Yeah, going off of that too, I think it was a really good thing for my school district to do. I think it did motivate a lot of people to actually continue to try to do better by giving them the option to have a letter grade. But also the reason that we were kind of able to do that, I understand like accessibility issues and it's not like the easiest thing to do for every school district, but my school and all the high schools in my area gave out Chromebooks, like school Chromebooks to anyone who was in need of it, which is why we were kind of trying to fix and like bridge that accessibility gap. We also like have done things where like there's like food that we give out in like package, like care packages for like on Tuesdays at 2 of the high schools in my area. So we've been trying to kind of make it like easy and like equal accessibility for everyone along the way, which is why I think we're able to do the letter grade or the pass fail, because I think that's more fair. But I really like that idea from my school district.
For my school, again, we also have a pass fail or the option of a letter. And I think it's a good idea, but also something that I think my district has been doing really well was they sent out a survey for people who maybe had issues with technology, and they were able to distribute some Chromebooks for students, which again, I know not every school has the funding for that. But another thing that our school also did was if you really struggle with the devices or the Wi-Fi, they would print assignments in 2 week modules and mail them to you. So you would still do the work, but again, you're not really getting feedback, but at least it was something so that students would have access to work in case they don't have Wi-Fi or devices.
I think my school has been doing a really good job with communicating with the students. We've had multiple student meetings with some of our administrators just talking what might be the needs of our students. And I think that's the main question that all of our teachers are asking is, how can we help our students and what are their needs? Kind of echoing what Isabella said, she said how the school kind of goes out, prepares meals for students, and fortunate, our school, we have a one-on-one Chromebook, so we're able to do that. But I think the communication with the students is very key when we ask like these questions. What are their needs? And I think with the help of our teachers and administrators, I think if we just keep asking that question, I think we can help solve some of our problems here.
You had mentioned, oh, go ahead.
Sorry. When it comes to grading, my school, it's a little weird because we like in school, we did this survey of kids that like don't have like technology necessarily to do stuff online. So the kids that don't get packets of stuff, but they are doing like a different set of work than the kids that are doing online are. So it's kind of weird grading, and I don't know if they're getting the credit, no credit, or if they're getting grades based off of like how they do on the assignment because they're doing the paper assignments and doing the paper tests, and they're different tests and assignments than what we're doing online. So I think it's kind of like it's a weird situation to have the students doing different kinds of work.
So to that point around different resources, different assignment, different accessibility pieces that go with that, as Mackenzie brought up, I'm curious too, you said that teachers were flexible, they were compassionate earlier. When it came to the volume of work, how much work are you getting per class per week maybe? And is that volume reasonable? And or would it be helpful to have further reduced how much work or the number of subject areas you are actually having to work for?
So for my school, I have 7 classes, And the teachers were assigned to give 30 minutes of work every day. And we had this thing, they would send out the work prior to the week. So on Friday, we get a week at a glance. And that would really give us a gist of how much work we're going to be given that week and how long it should take us. So I think my school personally did a really good job by giving us the week at a glance to prepare for the following week and really time it out how we should go about each class.
So I think the amount of work that I've gotten for the core classes has been really good, like reasonable. We're just getting stuff that comes out every week. We've gotten locked into a schedule so that we pretty much know what's going to happen. But again, for the arts classes and for a lot of those classes that don't have structured curriculums, it's just been all over the place, because I can only imagine that those teachers are trying to figure out what's going to work best, how they need to hold classes, because these classes operate completely differently than all of your other standard classes. So it's been a little confusing, and we've really had to keep on top of things, because there will be some weeks where hardly anything comes out, and then other weeks where we're just piled with a whole bunch of stuff. So I think that those specialty classes have been a little more difficult.
Just agreeing with what Ethan said, I don't think the volume is an issue at all. I think the amount of work we've been getting has been perfectly fine. Teachers were told for my district not to exceed 3 hours of video instruction, and none of my teachers get anywhere near that, so it's fine. But also, like I said, the workload is fine, but again, I think it's the timing issue. If all the work is due on Friday, I have some teachers who post at noon on Sunday morning, and I have other teachers who post Monday evening at 8 p.m. So I think it's not the volume, it's just the organization and the scheduling of it.
One aspect about my school that I do like is that all of our teachers are required to send out their work on Monday. So you sort of know what your week looks like at the beginning of the week, and then it's due that following Monday. So I think that's been a really strong point. I would say the only fault with that is that I would say a lot of students procrastinate. So I would say the workload is fair. It's just a lot of students wait till that Sunday night to complete it, and where that becomes a stressful situation. But no, I do think that my school has handled it really well, sending it out all at the same time. I would definitely say we have a fair workload. It does not represent what being in actual school is like, but I also think it's fair just due to accessibility issues. So yeah, I think my school has done a good job with that.
My teachers, we have 3 different methods that we're doing. Like, some teachers are assigning daily, some teachers are assigning weekly, and then some teachers assign for the rest of the year. And the teachers that are assigned for the rest of the year, it's about 100 assignments for from the time they started the online schooling until the end of the year. And we have other teachers that are assigning weekly about 50 assignments. So it's like different workloads for each class, even if the class doesn't necessarily need like 50 assignments per week versus like 100 assignments per year. So, but I don't think it's too much, but it does get kind of stressful if you're doing like what some teachers assign for the rest of the year, you're doing half of that per week. So it can kind of start piling on it, if you're not keeping up with it every single day. But I still don't think the workload's like super like extravagant.
One of the questions that came in was, do any of you or your friends lack the internet availability or for packets, transportation to get somewhere to connect to the internet or even to pick up or return packets? Have you heard that? Have you had that experience or heard that from any of your friends?
So for myself and my peers, we all have Wi-Fi. It's just not always dependable. I know I had a lot of friends who during AP exams were so stressed that their Wi-Fi would just shut off and they need to restart it. So that's one thing that I think when teachers post quizzes that everyone must take at 4 p.m., It's very stressful. And also for returning packets for my school, we don't have that. We send the work so students can attempt it. But again, there's really no way for them to get feedback because they're not sending it back anywhere.
I think that one thing that my school has done really well as far as packets is you reach out to them that maybe you don't have internet or you don't have a device or whatever the issue is, and they bring the packet to your house. Like someone brings the packet to you and then 2 weeks later comes back and picks it up. And so I think especially it might work for my school because it's smaller and more rural, but I think that that line of communication has really helped because a lot of those people maybe don't have the ability to get somewhere to bring it to or pick it up or whatever the issue may be. So I think they've done a good job with, if a student has a problem, they bring them the packet immediately or they bring them the device they need immediately. And then they can also come and pick those packets up when they need to.
Yeah, for my school, I wouldn't say many people do not have internet. There may be a few, but my school does have the packet option. I do not believe we have any teachers or administrators go and pick up the packets. I think it's just you do it yourself and sort of just try to complete it in time. I'm not sure if they ever turn those in, but I do know it is beneficial if they do not have access to devices, although my school has been giving out MacBooks if you request it. So, I mean, I think most people do have internet, so my school has been quite lenient and trying to adjust to students' needs. I would just say the packets, if they are not getting feedback, they're not incredibly useful. So I would definitely think we would need to figure out a way to work around that, or like Ethan said, to have teachers give feedback if we do not have that.
I think one thing that we have had some quite success at my school is we're able to provide one-on-one Chromebooks for students, as well as we have really healthy relationships with our communities. And we have local internet providers that get in touch with households that possibly are having internet problems and make sure that they are taken care of.
One of the things I learned about yesterday when I was talking to a student about their remote learning is some of the tools and apps that they're using that have really helped. And this student really struggled with reading and didn't have a lot of tech skills. And one of the tools that his teacher was using was called Cami. And it was a tool that was like a PDF. So you could actually write on PDFs and that. But it also had a text-to-speech functionality. So he could hover over the text and it would actually read to him. And he found that to be incredibly helpful. As a learner, has there been any application, doesn't have to be Cami or something that was from, a reading type of thing, but has there been any apps that your teachers have used or tools that your teachers have used that you think have been really helpful or powerful or something that you wish more teachers would utilize?
Absolutely. I have many because my teachers like to try many different ones. For math, there's one website called Math Excel, and similar to what Ethan had mentioned earlier, what it does is you cannot progress in the assignment until you get the question right, and there will be example problems so you can see what you're doing wrong. Another thing for math is Edpuzzle. You can get the app on your phone or the website online, and there basically your math teacher can post their lecture, and throughout the clips they will insert questions like checkpoints, so you have to watch the entire lecture all the way through while answering questions throughout the lecture. So that was really good. Also for Spanish, or I think any language really, Conjugamos, however you pronounce it, is a website in which you can access different listening, speaking, writing, reading activities for a foreign language, and that has always been a really good resource for us.
I think that one of the biggest resources, aside from Delta Math, which I mentioned earlier, is when teachers utilize what College Board has done with the AP program and all the stuff they've been putting out. because what my AP biology teacher did was he posted a question of the day every day up until we took the test. So when I actually sat down and opened the test, I felt really comfortable with it because I had been looking at those same types of questions for weeks. So I think that teachers that have utilized what College Board has been putting out as far as the AP programs, the students have done really well because they've seen all these questions before, so they feel prepared when they actually sit down to take it.
I feel like the majority of my learning hasn't been done on applications. It's really been like handwriting and submitting pictures in Google Classroom or something like that. However, I know for my Gov class, we use Albert.io. I don't know if like anyone like uses that website, but it's actually very, very nice because going back to the like giving feedback, when you get a question wrong, it's not just like wrong, here's the right answer. It's here's why every other answer is incorrect. And here's why this one is right. And I think that that is something extremely beneficial, which has helped me. It helped me last year with APUSH too. And we did it in class instruction also. So it's good for online and in class, but also I think there's been a push to do so many things that are Google related, like Google Classroom, Google Hangouts, Google Meets, because they're very connected with like the school and like we have that. But I think the Zoom is so much better. So much better. And all of my teachers are like, we're going to do a Google Meet. And I'm like, can we please not? Can we please not? Like Zoom is just the superior application. I feel like if you ask any student, they will definitely pick Zoom over Google Meet. So that is something that I think is important.
Yeah, adding on to Isabella, sorry. So my school actually has an annual like conference for our leadership class, and we were able to hold that over Zoom with the sheer amount of people. And my school really appreciates the gallery view on Zoom just because you can see so many more people. And there's so many other features that Zoom has that I think Google Hangouts lacks. Also, every school I think should rely on Google Classroom. It's so much simpler than emailing. Turning it in, all teachers can see that. But one thing that our math department has done really well is they all created Khan Academy accounts so they can post videos or link videos to the subjects that we are learning at the time. Also, my school, I don't know what it's called, but we have the application that, so a lot of students do not have the scientific calculators at home. So they found a website that has that, and they have given us all the logins so that we can do scientific calculations at home. As well as for our Spanish program, we utilize the Yabla program, and it's a video application that it asks questions throughout the video. So you're sort of reinforced learning rather than just watching a video and sort of not paying attention. It really reinforces the fact that you're paying attention and actually taking something away.
As schools start thinking about the coming year and the realities of COVID-19 still being here and the potential of either having to bring students back in a modified way, either like partial classes coming in at a time, like having shifts, or recently West Bloomfield put out their plan where maybe certain students are coming on Monday, Tuesday, other students are coming Thursday, Friday, and others who are looking at possibly even having to be completely remote next year until there's a vaccine or some type of contact tracing or combination of that to be there. So if you were to share feedback to your school about what they might need to rethink, what they might need to refine, or what they might need to reframe, what would be your priorities for additional consideration or change? Knowing you've talked about some, but what would you prioritize, knowing that it's not about just getting through the year, but potentially starting the year this way, and how do we move forward with learning? So how might they ramp up what they're currently doing in order for learning to progress?
So for my school, I really don't think that we will be doing anything besides remote learning, because we are 3 high schools on one campus, so it's about 7,000 students. I think the biggest thing that would really benefit all of us would be if there was organization in terms of subjects. So on Mondays at noon, all the English classes have their sessions, or on Tuesdays at this time is when we do this. The lack of organization between subjects and teachers is what's causing these overlaps of classes, which makes it a lot harder to communicate and have that one-on-one with each teacher in each class. So I think it's all about organization and making sure that all of administration, counselors, teachers are on the same page.
I agree with Anna a lot. I feel like, as I mentioned earlier, my teachers were kind of doing their own thing. They were very much like, I'm going to do this and I'll do this. And they weren't following the strict schedule that administration kind of sent out. So I think something that could be really improved would be administration communication with staff and like teachers specifically, making sure they're following their schedule if they have one. Because my teachers too, there's not an assignment schedule. They kind of assign what they want. It's not like, oh, 3 hours a week or a certain amount of assignments. It's do whatever you feel as long as it's not too much. So I think having more of a strict schedule and making sure that teachers are actually following that is something that I would suggest for my school or district.
My school has been like kind of like what Anna said. They have been having like a lot of issues with not having one second. Sorry. I guess I'll start with this instead. Like, they're not very hands-on. My teachers have not been very hands-on, and it's kind of been an issue because, like, only the teacher that's been having the weekly Zoom meetings has really been the only one that's, like, asking us how we're doing. And I think next year, if we do continue with remote learning, I would really like to see teachers checking up on their students and really making sure that we're doing okay in the class and making sure that we know what's going on. And so that way, we're actually learning something rather than just finishing off the school year. Because that's something that I'm kind of worried about is going AP classes next year, is if I'm really actually learning the materials I need to know.
So Mackenzie's point around that check-in and having opportunities for that, and having some type of accountability that multiple have brought in there, to the point of just having a system in place so that people are on the same page and being there. So are there other things you would recommend or encourage your schools to consider as we plan for next year?
So for my school specifically, I would definitely encourage like bringing back letter grades, because there are so many students that I've talked to, like students are pretty smart, and if they don't have to do the work, they probably won't. There are a lot of people that did the math and then just did all the assignments they needed in order to pass and then just stopped. And so I think that you could almost compare that to like what they call the summer slide, where when we inevitably do go back to school, students are going to be so behind because they've only been doing the assignments they need in order to pass. They haven't actually been participating in the class. So they may have missed multiple units due to that. So I think that bringing back letter grades and bringing that back, that sense of accountability to students, would be really beneficial.
I agree with that. I also think that my teachers need to be more, I don't want to say transparent, but just like let us know more about grading, because like I have no clue currently if I'm passing my classes or not. I assume I am just because I'm doing all the assignments and getting feedback, but there's no Power Schools or program that tells me I am passing this class. So if we do bring back grading, I definitely think an application like Power Schools does need to be used, just because I'm so utterly confused right now on what my grading skills look like that I'm assuming I'm currently passing my classes, but I'm not sure. So I think definitely we need to be more, teachers need to be more accountable for letting students know their grades, especially if we are learning remote. And while I do wince at not having half of the school there every day, I think West Bloomfield's program does a really good job at outlining the fact that in-school learning is a lot more beneficial. So if we can conduct that in a safe manner, I would implore schools to try to have in-school learning just with less students at the school at a certain time.
Yeah, just going off of what Ethan and Chase have said, I agree with just bringing back letter grades as a source of, for me personally, comfort and feedback. I think that would really motivate me to continue to put forth my best work, like 100% of the time, rather than putting forth work that is only going to get me credit than accuracy.
One of the questions, go ahead.
Sorry. One thing that I wanted to mention was not really in regards to teachers, but rather counselors. I know, again, for my school, there's very many students, but if at some point counselors could have a one-on-one email, Zoom, or something with each of their students, just to check in, are they getting the work done? Do they have connection issues? Or even just a mental health check-in, how is it staying at home? I think it's really important. I know for me, I really kind of enjoy remote learning because I get to set my own schedule, but there are other people who are just bored out of their minds, you know? So I think it's important that every student does have a formal check-in.
Yeah, really quick, I'm going to bounce off that too, because I wanted to go on that too, like the mental health route. As Chase was saying, if at all possible to find some way like West Bloomfield is with in-school learning, I think it is something to heavily consider and look into, because I know a lot of, like, this is a mental health struggle for a lot of kids everywhere. It's not the same environment. A lot is going on with their families. And so like having school as kind of an outlet or a place where they can go is something that's very important to a lot of kids. And I think that's not only on counselors, but also teachers. My teacher, what she's doing, my French teacher, one of our assignments for the week is a check-in. She makes us, there's this app called Flipgrid, and that's also another app maybe to look into. She makes us respond to her, and she always responds back with like a little, maybe minute and a half video. How are you doing? What have you done this week? Like, how is your mental health? She always asks us those questions to make sure that we are doing okay. And she always gives us back a response, always. And it's face-to-face, even though it's not text, which is something I think that's also really important too. I like seeing her face, seeing her emotion, like in a video. It's better to know that someone like actually cares about you. And the fact that she makes it an assignment is also something that I think is really nice in a like way. So also just focusing on students' mental health through this too.
One of the questions that came in is, do you as a student prefer the online format that allows you to work at your own pace, where you're able to do work and then maybe you have these office hours or your check-in, or do you prefer having a set time with your teachers to connect via Zoom or Google Meets or whatever? Like, what's your personal preference?
I cannot stand the online, like the specific like times. I don't know. Personally, it's very hard because I feel like they make us wake up early, which is a struggle. No one likes to wake up early. But we have to do that. And there's also teachers that don't follow that schedule, which leads to conflicts. And I'm like in student council too. So we have them scheduling calls that are at the same time throughout the day. And it's just kind of a mess. And I feel like if teachers were to give us like a week schedule in advance, here are your assignments, here are the links to the videos or like our lectures that you need to watch. I think that personally for me, it'd be a lot better. My teachers also have office hours on Friday. Like Friday is a day reserved specifically for office hours, which is something nice that I think other schools could do too. But I like the idea of a week in advance.
I personally cannot imagine having scheduled Zoom classes. That sounds utterly horrible. I know a lot of people currently are working, so I think that'd be quite problematic at my school as well, just because I know a lot of people have jobs from like 10:30 a.m. to like 4 p.m. So if they have to miss their class, you have to consider, oh, do they now have a disadvantage when it comes to grades because they have to miss that Zoom because they have to work and maybe have other capabilities or things going on at that time. So I don't know. I think mandatory Zooms just are not the way to go, just because I feel like, one, students don't want to be there, but also like we're all remote learning, so we might as well learn at our own pace. rather than forcing us all to be on one call that doesn't maybe accommodate to student schedules.
So I think that the majority of, to kind of bounce off what Chase said, the majority of the stuff that I've done and the majority of the calls that I've had haven't even been school related. They're for different leadership activities and things that require like face-to-face interaction. So I don't think that Zoom classes that are scheduled would be beneficial unless they're absolutely needed. Like I understand that there are some classes that the teacher might really need students to get into groups and actually talk to each other. They may need to interact with their students face to face, but you can do a lot of that, like we said, through videos and through different outlets that can be posted and then viewed at any time. So I think that it would just, mandatory Zoom classes would really conflict with student schedules and it would become a bit of a nightmare.
Adding on to what Isabella said about timing, I think that's important too. Again, office hours are really up to the discretion of our teachers. And I have 2 teachers who hold office hours from 8 to 9 a.m., but then are not happy when no students ask for help during that time. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if most students are waking up at like 1 p.m. during this time. So I think it's important to just hold a schedule and maybe be a bit more understanding that teenagers are not going to wake up at 8 a.m. just to ask a math question. So.
I was working with a school district earlier this week and they have all asynchronous. So you can come on at any time and teachers push out their assignments Sunday by midnight. They have to do it and their highest open rate is 2 a.m. So I think it for their entire school. So I think it tells you a little bit about where our rhythms are and where we are with school. And so that does make sense that office hours at 8 a.m. probably aren't the most convenient for high school age students. As you think forward around this whole work and opportunities, obviously what your schools do matters. And all of you have mentioned at one point or another that what you appreciate about your school is their flexibility, the compassion, the connection. Even as you talked about some of the struggles, what you came back to was the fact that people connected with you and cared about you. And that was evident of where it is. You also mentioned that this idea that if we can at all come back together face to face in the fall, that's what people want, whether it's academic, social, emotional, mental health, those types of things. So one last part that I want to do before we close this out is just get a sense from you as people are moving forward. And obviously we referenced the West Bloomfield plan. And so theirs is where you come in for 2 days in a row, have a day off for deep cleaning of the building, 2 more days in a row, but you're there all day long. Other schools have talked about doing it where you come in for like a morning shift, have a deep clean in the middle of the day, and then come back in the afternoon, but you're coming in every day. Do you have ideas if we have to come in on some type of staggered or rotating schedule? Do you think as a student you'd prefer having like set days of the week, like a Monday, Tuesday, or a Monday, Thursday, versus a half day each day? Or would you prefer a daily contact where you had to come in for a partial day without the days off? What would you suggest?
For me, I would say set days. The morning afternoon schedule, I just think that would be so much more difficult in terms of transportation for kids who maybe don't take the bus or they usually get rides from their parents, whatever the situation might be. I think the morning and afternoon might just be a little bit too difficult for some students to manage.
I agree with that. I don't live very close to my school. It's a little bit of a drive because I go to a different one for a program. So getting there and getting back and then going there and getting back again and having to do that multiple times a day is not ideal. If it was like 2 times, like a day a week or like 2 days and then the pause in the middle and then 2 other days, I think specific days are a lot better than breaks in between.
I would tend to agree with that because I've noticed like just during different like normal half days or shortened days that you have throughout the year, a lot of students don't really take them as seriously and they're not taking it as the full opportunity, and teachers struggle because they've they've usually been structuring lessons for this long. And so then to turn it around for a year and have to structure all your lessons to be now, maybe they were an hour and 15 minutes and now they're 45 minutes. I think that would be a struggle just on the end of teachers. So I think that full days with breaks would be more ideal because it would be a sense of normality just as far as scheduling goes.
Yeah, in addition to what pretty much everyone said, I do agree with having those set days because it also allows you to plan accordingly for that week rather than plan each day individually.
Thank you for being on our panel. Thank you for being a part of the discussion, and thank you for our educators that were with us today to hear the perspective of our students in their communities. As we leave and close out this afternoon's webinar, I want you to think about in what ways did these voices mirror or conflict with the realities of your students? What were things you heard that the students appreciated that you're doing that you can celebrate with your teachers? What are some things that you might be doing that the students would prefer you alter? And then ultimately, how might this influence what you do in the coming year if the need for remote learning continues? So with that, thank you for joining MASSP for Leader2Leader Round 9, and thank you students for being a part of today's session and providing your insight. It will be helpful to us in our local schools, statewide, and at the policy level as well. Have a great afternoon, and we look forward to seeing others with us next week. On Thursday, we have Kim Marshall coming in from the Marshall Memos. The following week, we'll have a superintendent perspective in forecasting the future of education. And then our last one of the year is really going to be about thinking forward. And we're going to focus actually on learning management system. They mentioned Google Classroom. We'll also be having an opportunity around Canvas and Schoology too, as providing a systematic way for students to engage throughout their building rather than having multiple outlets that they have to navigate. So with that, thank you for being here and have a wonderful afternoon.